Hi, my name is Jeffrey Campbell, and today I'm going to be using interpretive techniques to help you understand what the Grand Escalante staircase is and what it means. So I want to introduce you to your baker today. Your baker is Clarence Edward Dutton. He was a career soldier and served in the Civil War and remained with the U.S. Army Ordnance Corps until retirement in 1901. Okay, so instead of a cookbook, baking cakes, this cookbook is called Stratigraphy. However, instead of making layer cake, we're making a cake based on rock layers. This recipe is the Grand Staircase, and among the ingredients I could use, igneous sedimentary metamorphic rock, we're going to use sedimentary. Sedimentary rock is deposited over time, and also it follows a few laws. Those are called Steno's laws, superposition, cross-cutting techniques. So cross-cutting techniques has to do with, this feels a little tight. And so Clarence Edward Dutton, he named the layers that he saw looking up the Grand Staircase. And the Grand Staircase starts at the Grand Canyon and goes up to Bryce Canyon with Zion in between. It's just the perfect trifecta lineup of national parks. So what Dutton observed, and others were observing around this was a great time in geology, by the way. The fossil record was already firmly established, and there were things that they knew based on the components and the ingredients of the strata, or the layers of this layer cake. They're not all the same after all. There are events such as plate tectonics, plasticity of the mantle of the earth that the crust floats on, and thus creates these faults. There are folds going on in several different faults, and Hurricane, spelled hurricane, is a town just next to where I am right now in Ivins that is one of these beautiful, strange folds. And this whole region really is comprised of three larger regions. You've got the Colorado Plateau, which shares the Four Corners area, so the northwest part of New Mexico, where the Gila National Forest to the Chiricahuas in Arizona, and this is the Basin and Range region where you have the Sonora Desert in the south, like in Tucson, where I originally came from. And so what we need to remember with this is that this is a plateau, the Colorado Plateau. You have the chocolate layer, which is the lowest layer. At the pink is where the hoodoos are. And these colors, by the way, they come from the ingredients that are in each of these layers. And it's how the iron oxides, or oxidizes with oxygen, so iron oxide on the outside of the rocks, as well as manganese and other elements that create different colors. So when we bake each of these layers, I just happen to have a model here, how these rules can be broken in regards to how the layers are laid down. Because again, you have plate tectonics, so you have uprising, you have folds, you have rocks that are called thrusts. For example, in our cake, here's our layer cake, and as you can see, there's the chocolate vermilion, right? Oops, they kind of stick in together there, they're sticky. So the chocolate, the vermilion, the white, the gray, and the pink. So there's our pink, and there's our gray. Pink, gray, white, vermilion, and chocolate. You have the Colorado Plateau. So you have this shape like this, where the chocolate dips into the deep Grand Canyon, and then you have the Grand Staircase. Now, These layers were all laid in order, right, with oldest to youngest, okay? And there's all sorts of layers of stratum in between here. And then someone might ask, well, what is with the rocks that go this way or against the other way? Well, those thrusts, and I wrote on here pink thrust here because the pink is the highest level that you can attain on this pyramid of joy. So you have this rock. And imagine if this is our cake. Well, the cake is already made, and the layers were put in the order that they exist. However, there's a penetration, a thrust, that goes up right through the chocolate hole and goes right through to the other side to the pink hole. And so, obviously, this thrust right there is the newest addition to this stack of cake, okay? And so here's a slice showing the Grand Canyon, like I described. There's all the individual stratum of rock, and then there's the chocolate cliffs, the vermilion cliffs, white cliffs, gray and pink cliffs, okay? So when you have an object, right, other rocks that start pushing in this way and thrust, that is how you can determine the age of the rocks, because these follow natural laws in Steno's laws, where the newest sediment is on top. The top layer is the Clarin Formation, right? 40 to 60 million years ago, right? During the Eocene epoch, right? Pink, orange, white. And that's from iron and, like I said, manganese there. That's the pink cliffs and the hoodoos. I think what's most interesting is where Bryce ends the Dakota sandstone, that's where Zion begins. And then it has all these other layers, notably the Navajo sandstone, which was deposited about 180 million years ago. Coming back to when we were talking about Snow Canyon here, there's a lot of Navajo sandstone in petrified forests and things of that nature. And then if you look at the Kaibab here, the limestone, right? During the Paleozoic era, 252 million years ago, it is where the Grand Canyon begins. And then you have these other layers that go down to the Bright Angel Shale, and then my favorite. And then finally the Vishnu Schist, which is 1.7 billion years ago, is the lowest layer in the Grand Canyon, but certainly not the lowest in the state, okay? And in between those, you have the only mountain range that goes east and west, which was deposited 770 million years ago. It includes Kings Peak, the highest point in the state, well above 13,000 feet. And then, of course, the Red Creek Quartzite Formation in the eastern Vista Mountains, 2.3 billion years ago, the oldest rocks in the state. When you get into Dark Canyon Instant Study Area Complex, it's so intriguing you start studying instantly. I used to live over here in the Glen Canyon National Recreation Area and Lake Powell area of Page, where Amangiri is over here, and right where the Grand Escalante staircase begins, okay? So what we have down here is some of the oldest layers. Is everything okay over there? Where we have some of the oldest layers of the Grand Staircase. And with this, we have the Vishnu Schist of 1.7 billion years ago, and the Big Cottonwood Formation near Salt Lake City. Oh, a whole different kind of wilderness, okay? And the Ashley Wilderness Forest. And this is where the tallest peaks in the state are, including Kings Peak.